I paid for the wedding, and my daughter-in-law used it to humiliate me in front of 300 guests. I just smiled. Then the bride's aunt almost choked when she heard my name and asked for the microphone. What she said made her cry. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from, or what time it is for yous. If I faltered today, I feared I'd lose my son to the cold, and to a woman who dressed cruelty up as ambition. The coffee on my kitchen table had gone lukewarm, and I kept my hands around the mug anyway, as if it could do the holding for me. Christopher paced between the sink and the window, his dress shoes ticking across old linoleum. Victoria draped herself in my recliner like an advertisement for designer jewelry, her bracelet catching light each time she gestured. "Mom, we need to talk," Christopher said, sweetness queued up like a singer clearing her throat. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" I asked, already bracing. Victoria leaned forward with a practiced smile. "Margaret, we're counting on $50,000 for the wedding. It's our dream." The number hit like a slap that didn't want witnesses. My pension covered groceries and heat if I was careful. My savings were for the years after. Careful no longer worked. "I don't have that kind of money," I said. "Not right now." Christopher turned, eyes shining too quickly to be accidental. "Mom, this is my one shot. There'll be important people there. I can't look cheap." "Honey," I said, keeping my voice low. "I know weddings are expensive, but other mothers move mountains." Victoria cut in, the temperature dropping. "My aunt always says, a real woman shows up for the big moments." I watched my son's face crumple. The same choreography I'd seen when he was 16 and wanted a car he couldn't drive safely. "If you really love me, you'll find a way," he whispered. "Remember me playing dress-up in Dad's suit jacket?" That name caught me where it always did. Robert had been the one to see through performance and reach the person underneath. He'd tell me to love Christopher and also to keep my spine. "I'm living on a teacher's pension," I said. "I've got $30,000 in savings. That has to last." "30's a start," Victoria said briskly, already pulling out her phone. "You could borrow the rest. Banks love reliable pensioners." "I'm 68, I said. "That's what loving mothers do," Christopher said, voice catching right on cue. I glanced at the stack of bills on the counter. The house seemed to draw tighter around us, walls breathing with their expectations. "I'll figure something out," I heard myself say. Christopher launched himself around my neck. "I knew you would, Mom. You're the best." Victoria straightened her blouse. "We'll need confirmation by next week. Deposits, vendors, the usual." They gathered their things, Victoria's perfume floating behind them, excitement clattering down my hallway and out the front door. When the quiet returned, it brought the old ache with it. I spread bank statements and pension printouts across the table and ran the calculator 3 times, as if numbers changed when you humbled yourself enough. 30,000 and change. 20 to go. I stared until the digits blurred, then looked up the number for Grandview First Bank. The branch looked the way it had when I opened my first account in my 20s. Marble floors, fluorescent shine, a smell like polished quarters. The young rep at the desk smiled with all her teeth, and none of her history. "Mrs. Hayes," the loan officer said, hand warm, office tidy, plaques everywhere, family photo with a golden retriever and 2 kids. "Angela Martinez." "I need to borrow $20,000, I said, the words steadier than my pulse. "For my son's wedding." She typed, nodded, frowned, typed again. "You've banked with us a long time. Pension steady. With your history, we can do 7.9% over 5 years. Payments around $445ers. I pictured the grocery list I would learn to cut like coupons. No more diner breakfasts on Sundays. Cable gone. Coat another year. Teeth later. I'll take it, I said. We signed papers until my hand cramped. Disclosure piled on disclosure. Each one a little promise my future made to my present. When it was done, Angela shook my hand again. "Funds will post Friday morning, Mrs. Hayes." I walked out lighter and heavier, Both true at once. Lighter, because I could give Christopher his magazine pages come to life. Heavier because I had just mortgaged the next 5 years for a single day. Friday morning, the email buzzed. Deposit posted. I called Christopher. Perfect timing. He whooped over the sound of a planner chattering about flowers. Can we come by at 3? They were punctual. Christopher sprang into my arms. Joy in a bright shirt. Victoria carried a leather portfolio that probably cost more than my winter heating. I secured the funding, I said. All of it. Victoria lifted an eyebrow. How? I emptied my savings and took a personal loan. She nodded, respectful enough to pass under chandelier light. Good. We can finalize the vendor schedule. There's one condition, I said, the words quieter than I meant. Victoria's face went alert. What kind of condition? I want one seat at the reception for someone who means a lot to me. Christopher blinked. Mom, the guest list's set. The caterer needs final numbers. Just one seat, I said. One place at a table I'm already paying for. We're grateful, Victoria said smoothly. But our wedding means we decide the guests. This person's family, in a way. Christopher's voice climbed a grade. You're making it about you. I looked from my son to the woman who would be his wife, and saw no give. One seat, I said again. Or you can step back. Victoria said, teeth still showing. Up to you. He hesitated, then followed her to the door. Mom, don't make this harder. After they left, the house went quiet with that vault click sound a front door makes when something final has happened. I picked up the loan packet from where it had slipped to the floor. 5 years, 60 payments, my name on every line. The next weeks blurred into checks cut to people who called me ma'am and looked past me to the couple. At the florist, Christopher exchanged a look with Victoria when I suggested simple centerpieces, and I pocketed my ideas. At the caterers, I eyed trays that cost more per plate than a month of my pantry. At Lakeview Hall, the event coordinator, Marcus' perfect hair, smile like an expensive candle, toured me through a ballroom that shone with chandeliers and polished floors. Your son and his fiancée have excellent taste, he said. I suppose they do, I said, looking out over the gardens where I imagined Christopher laughing under string lights. I wanted that for him. I wanted him happy, even if happiness cost more than sense. The invitation arrived on thick vellum. Mrs. Margaret Hayes elegantly scripted as if I were someone you seat in the back. St. Catherine's Church, the date, the time. I RSVP'd attending and set the card beside my electric bill. The morning turned up blue and wide, temperatures in the mid-70s. The kind of day Robert would have called heaven sent. I pulled on my best dress, the same one from Christopher's graduation, smoothed the fabric over hands that still remembered their old burns, if the water ran too hot. At St. Catherine's, an usher waved me toward the pews with a vague sweep. I found a seat near the back and watched people I didn't know fill the front rows reserved for importance. The organ swelled. Victoria took her place, beautiful as a magazine cover. Christopher appeared at the doors, handsome enough to make my breath catch. He walked alone. No mother's arm, no nod in my direction. That's not a complaint. It's a measurement. I had spent 3 decades lowering a ruler to see how much space a woman could make for someone else. Today I learned a new mark. The ceremony was beautiful and said all the right things about love and honoring the families that made us. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises sturdy enough to sound right with microphones, rings, a kiss, applause like rain on a tin roof. I slipped out a side door and drove to Lakeview Hall behind a fleet of cars that looked like they came with their own garages. Inside the ballroom, Christopher and Victoria held court near the bar, their friends orbiting like expensive satellites. I found my table, number 14, near the kitchen doors where sound came in bursts of metal and steam. The centerpiece was smaller than the ones I'd seen staged on the main floor. The napkins were paper where the others were linen. A woman in her 70s sat across from me. Oxygen tube coiled like punctuation beneath her nose. Her dress was Sunday best polyester, pearls that looked inherited, hands that knew work. "Eleanor," she said, offering her hand. "Margaret," I said. "You're the groom's mother." "I am. I'm the bride's aunt, Tori's father's sister." She adjusted the tube with the efficiency of someone who'd stopped apologizing for needing air. "I wasn't supposed to be here. Budget cuts, you know. Last-minute addition." I understood then. We were the charitable seats, the overflow, the ones tucked near the kitchen because love looked better when it didn't cost extra. Dinner arrived in courses choreographed to look effortless, each plate a small architecture of intention. I ate because not eating would draw attention, and I had learned long ago how to be invisible when visibility cost too much. Between the salad and the entree, Victoria's father stood, tall, silver-haired, the kind of man who wore success like cologne. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he began, his voice carrying the practiced warmth of someone used to speaking to rooms that listened. "My daughter has always dreamed of this day, and thanks to our family's support, she got exactly what she deserved. Our family, singular, possessive." I kept my face still. He continued, talking about sacrifice and investment, about building futures and standing behind your children. The subtext was clear. This was his production, his generosity, his stage. I was an audience member who'd bought the cheapest ticket. When he finished, the applause came easy and long. Christopher beamed at Victoria. She glowed under her father's approval, like she'd been waiting for that light her whole life. I excused myself to the restroom, stood in a stall and breathed until my hands stopped shaking. When I came back, Eleanor was waiting in the hallway. "You paid for this, didn't you?" She asked the question gentle but precise. I didn't answer. "I can always tell," she said. "The ones who write the checks sit where you sat. The ones who take credit stand where he stood." "It doesn't matter," I said. "It does, though." She touched my arm briefly. A tether. "It always does." Back at the table, the DJ announced the first dance. Christopher and Victoria moved across the floor with the grace of people who'd taken lessons. The photographer circled them like a moon, flashes punctuating every spin. When the song ended, Victoria's father cut in. Then Christopher danced with Victoria's mother, their smiles broad, public, perfect. No one asked me. The playlist shifted into faster songs. Groups formed on the dance floor, laughing, phones out, documenting joy for audiences who weren't there. I watched my son move through them, his hand finding Victoria's waist, her head tipping toward his shoulder. They looked happy. They looked whole. They looked like people who didn't need anyone outside the frame. Eleanor leaned close. "You want to leave?" "I want to stay," I said. "Surprising myself? Good." She nodded once. "Then we stay." The best man stood for his toast, fumbling with note cards, making jokes about college and bad decisions, and how Christopher had finally found someone who could put up with him. Laughter rolled through the room. I laughed too, because the stories were funny, and because it was easier than explaining why they hurt. Then the microphone passed to Victoria's maid of honor, who cried through her whole speech, talking about how Victoria had always known what she wanted, and how lucky Christopher was to have been chosen. Chosen? As if love were an audition, and he'd passed. The cake came next. 3 tiers of fondant and buttercream, topped with sugar flowers that looked more real than the ones in my yard. They cut it together, posed, smiled, fed each other bites while cameras clicked and people cheered. When the slice arrived at my table, Eleanor pushed hers toward me. "I'm not supposed to have sugar," she said. "Doctor's orders. You eat it." I ate both pieces. They tasted expensive and empty, the kind of sweetness that didn't last past the first bite. The evening wore on. The playlist cycled through eras. The crowd thinned as older guests drifted toward exits, citing babysitters and early mornings. I stayed. Eleanor stayed. We watched the young people dance like the floor might disappear if they stopped moving. At some point, the DJ called for a special moment. The music softened. Victoria's father took the microphone again. "Before we wrap up," he said, "I want to recognize someone very special." My heart lifted. "Foolish and hopeful. My wife," he continued, who put this whole event together. None of this would have been possible without her vision. Victoria's mother stood, waved, accepted the applause like she'd earned every second of it. I felt Eleanor's hand cover mine on the table. "Steady," she murmured. I was steady. I'd been steady my whole life. Steady when Robert died and left me to raise Christopher alone. Steady when the pension didn't stretch as far as the bills. Steady when my son looked at me tonight like I was a stranger. He'd ceded out of pity. But steady has a cost, and tonight I'd spent everything I had saved. The night was winding down. Guests began gathering their things, saying goodbyes, hugging the couple one last time. Christopher and Victoria stood near the exit, thanking people, their faces bright with the exhaustion of being celebrated. I stood too, smoothing my dress, preparing to leave quietly. That's when Eleanor stood. She moved slowly, the oxygen tank rattling softly behind her. But when she reached the DJ booth, she didn't ask permission. She simply took the microphone from his hands with the authority of someone who'd stopped waiting for permission decades ago. The room didn't quiet immediately. Conversations continued in pockets. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed near the bar. But Eleanor waited, standing there with the microphone in one hand and the oxygen tube trailing behind her like a leash she'd learned to ignore. Slowly the noise ebbed. Faces turned. Christopher looked confused. Victoria's smile tightened at the edges. "I don't usually do this," Eleanor began, her voice carrying despite the oxygen that made each word cost a little more. "But I'm 75 years old, and I've learned that if you wait for the right time to say something true, you'll die with your mouth full of silence." A few nervous laughs. Someone near the front whispered something. Eleanor ignored them. "I want to tell you about a woman I met tonight," she said. "We sat together at table 14, near the kitchen, where they put the people who don't quite fit the seating chart." Christopher's face went pale. Victoria's father shifted his weight, clearly trying to decide if this was charming or problematic. "Her name is Margaret Hayes," Eleanor continued, "and she's the groom's mother. Dull eyes found me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to become part of the chair, the floor, the wallpaper. But Eleanor kept talking, and running would have made it worse. "Margaret paid for this wedding," Eleanor said. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward. Not contributed, not helped, paid, every dollar. The venue, the flowers, the food you ate, the open bar you've been enjoying all night. She emptied her savings and took out a personal loan she'll be paying off for the next 5 years. Victoria's mother's smile froze. Christopher looked like he'd been struck. "She's 68 years old," Eleanor said, her voice softening but not relenting, "living on a teacher's pension. And when she asked for one thing, one seat at this reception, for someone who mattered to her, she was told no, because the guest list was set, because the numbers were tight, because this was the bride and groom's decision." The silence now was absolute. Even the kitchen had gone quiet. "So she sat at table 14, Eleanor continued. "With me, another last-minute addition, another person who got squeezed in after the important people were already seated. And she watched her son get married without walking him down the aisle, without a mention in the toasts, without a dance. She watched the bride's father take credit for this entire night, and she didn't say a word." I could feel my face burning. Tears pressed against the back of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. "I'm not telling you this to shame anyone," Eleanor said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm telling you because I've lived long enough to know that the people who pay the price are rarely the ones who get the applause. And that's not right. That's not how family works. That's not how love works. She turned to Christopher then, and her voice changed. Still firm, but gentler. The way you'd talk to someone you wanted to save from themselves. Young man, I don't know you, but I know your mother. I spent 3 hours with her tonight, and I can tell you this. She loves you more than you deserve right now. She gave you this day because you asked for it. She didn't ask for anything in return except to be seen. And you couldn't even give her that. Christopher's eyes were red. Victoria stood frozen beside him, her hand still on his arm but no longer squeezing. You're starting a marriage, Eleanor said, and that's beautiful. But marriage isn't just about the person you choose. It's about the people who made you who you are. The ones who sacrificed so you could stand here in your expensive suit and your perfect venue and pretend you did this on your own. She paused, catching her breath. The oxygen machine hissed softly. Margaret Hayes deserves better than Table 14, Eleanor said. She deserves better than silence. She deserves better than being erased from the story of a day she made possible. Eleanor set the microphone down gently, as if it were fragile. Then she turned and walked back toward me, her steps slow but deliberate. The room stayed silent. No one knew what to do with what she'd just said. It hung in the air like smoke after a fire, visible and unavoidable. When Eleanor reached me, she touched my shoulder. "Let's go," she whispered. But before I could stand, Christopher was moving. He crossed the dance floor quickly, his face flushed, eyes wet. He stopped in front of me, and for a moment, he just stood there, like he'd forgotten what he meant to say. "Mom," he said finally, his voice cracking on the word. I looked up at him. My boy, my son, the child I'd raised alone after Robert died, the one I'd worked double shifts for, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, to tie his shoes, to be kind even when kindness cost something. "I'm sorry," he said. 2 words, small and insufficient, but they were a start. Victoria appeared beside him, her face carefully composed. She looked at Eleanor first, then at me. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, "I owe you an apology. We both do." I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice yet. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this," Victoria continued. "I got caught up in making everything look perfect, and I forgot what actually mattered." Christopher knelt beside my chair, his expensive suit wrinkling against the floor. "You asked for one seat," he said. "And I said no. I made this whole day about impressing people who don't even matter, and I forgot about the one person who's always been there." "Your mother didn't forget you," Eleanor said sharply from beside me. "She was right here, at Table 14, watching you have the time of your life." Christopher flinched. "Good. He should flinch." "I don't know how to fix this," he said, looking at me with the same expression he'd had when he was 8, and broke my favorite lamp and didn't know if sorry would be enough. "You can start," I said quietly, "by meaning it." "I do," he said immediately. "Mom, I do. I got so focused on what Tori and I wanted that I stopped thinking about what you needed, what you gave up. I knew you took out a loan, but I didn't let myself think about what that meant. How much that cost you." Victoria's father was making his way over, his expression somewhere between concern and damage control. Victoria's mother followed, looking like she'd swallowed something bitter. "Is everything all right here?" Victoria's father asked, his voice low. Meant only for us, but carrying anyway. "No," Eleanor said before anyone else could answer. "Everything is not all right, but it might be, if you all stop pretending it is." He blinked, clearly unused to being spoken to this way. "My sister just told this entire room that Margaret paid for the wedding," he said tightly. "That's a private matter." "It stopped being private," Eleanor said, "when you stood up there and took credit for it." His jaw tightened. Victoria's mother touched his arm, a warning or a plea. I couldn't tell which. We offered to contribute, Victoria's mother said carefully. Margaret declined. Because you offered $5,000? Eleanor said. For a $50,000 wedding. That's not contributing. That's watching someone drown and throwing them a pool noodle. We weren't asked to pay for the whole thing, Victoria's father said, his voice rising slightly. If they'd wanted our help, they wanted your approval. Eleanor interrupted. There's a difference. And Margaret gave them what they wanted because that's what mothers do. They make miracles happen so their children can have what they dream of. I found my voice then. It came out steadier than I expected. I didn't do it for credit, I said. I did it because Christopher asked me to. Because he's my son, and I wanted him to be happy. But, Mom, Christopher said, still kneeling, you shouldn't have had to. We could have done something smaller. Something that didn't cost you everything. You didn't want smaller, I said gently. You wanted this, and I wanted you to have it. That doesn't make it right, he said. No, I agreed. It doesn't. Victoria crouched down too, her dress pooling around her like spilled cream. Mrs. Hayes, I was awful to you. I made this whole thing about appearances and status, and I treated you like you were in the way instead of the reason we could do any of this. I looked at her, really looked at her, beneath the makeup and the perfectly styled hair. She looked young, scared, like she'd just realized she'd been playing a part and forgotten who she actually was underneath. I don't need an apology right now, I said. I need space. I need to go home. Please don't leave like this, Christopher said. Not with things broken. Things were already broken, I said. Eleanor just made everyone look at them. Eleanor smiled faintly at that. It's a gift, she said. And a curse. I stood. Christopher and Victoria stood too. Around us, the remaining guests were pretending not to watch, while absolutely watching. Phones were probably out. Someone was definitely recording. This would be a story people told for years. The wedding where the aunt called everyone out. The reception that turned into a reckoning. I'm proud of you, I told Christopher because I needed to say it before I left. I'm proud of the man you've become, even when you make mistakes. I'm proud that you can apologize. That's more than a lot of people can do. His face crumpled. I love you, Mom. I know, I said. I've always known. Victoria was crying now, silent tears that ruined her makeup but somehow made her look more real. Can we come see you tomorrow? To talk properly? Call first, I said. Make sure I'm ready. She nodded. I turned to Eleanor. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. I just made your life very complicated. It was already complicated, I said. You just made it honest. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. I like you, Margaret Hayes. You've got spine. Learned from my husband, I said. He taught me that love means showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He taught you well, Eleanor said. We walked toward the exit together, her oxygen tank rattling, my heels clicking. Behind us, the DJ started the music again, tentative, like he wasn't sure if the party was over or just paused. A few people drifted back to the dance floor, others clustered in groups, whispering, processing. Outside, the air was cool and clean. Stars were trying to show themselves, despite the light pollution. I stood on the steps of Lakeview Hall and breathed in deep, filling my lungs with something that wasn't perfume and regret. You have a ride? Eleanor asked. I drove, I said. Good. Don't let them put you in a cab. You drive yourself home. Take your time. Stop if you need to cry. I'm not going to cry, I said. Liar, she said affectionately. You'll cry the second you get in that car, and that's fine. You've earned it. She was right. The moment I sat in the driver's seat and closed the door, the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like rain that had been waiting for permission to fall. I cried for the mother I'd been tonight, the one who sat at table 14 and smiled through humiliation. I cried for the money I'd borrowed, for the 5 years of payments ahead. I cried for Robert, who would have known what to say, who would have made me laugh even when I wanted to break. And then I stopped, because crying in a parking lot wouldn't change the numbers in my bank account or the ache in my chest. It would just make my eyes puffy. I drove home slowly, through familiar streets, past houses with lights in the windows, lives happening behind glass. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked smaller than it had this morning, like it had shrunk while I was gone. Or maybe I had just expanded into too much feeling to fit back inside. I unlocked the door, turned on the kitchen light. The loan papers were still on the table where I'd left them. 60 months, 445 per payment, my name at the bottom, looping and permanent. I made tea, not coffee. It was too late for coffee, and I needed something gentle. I sat at the table and sipped it slowly, letting the warmth spread through my chest, displacing some of the cold. My phone buzzed. A text from Christopher, Mom, I'm so sorry. I love you. We'll fix this. I didn't respond yet. Let him wait. Let him wonder. Not out of cruelty, but because some apologies need time to ripen before you accept them. Another text. Victoria this time. Mrs. Hayes, thank you for everything. I'm ashamed of how I treated you. I hope you can forgive me someday. I set the phone down. Forgiveness wasn't something I could hand out tonight. It would take time, work, proof that they meant it. I looked around my small kitchen, the chipped counters, the old appliances, the table Robert and I bought at a yard sale 30 years ago. None of it was impressive. None of it would make a magazine. But it was mine, and it had been enough before Christopher asked for more. It would be enough again. I finished my tea, washed the cup, turned out the lights, went to bed in the same house I'd woken up in, but feeling like a different woman. Not worse, not better, just different. Like I'd shed a skin I'd been wearing so long, I forgot it wasn't actually mine. Tomorrow I'd wake up and start paying the price for tonight. 45's a month, 60 months, but tonight I'd sleep, and that was enough. The days after the wedding moved like molasses, slow, thick, hard to swallow. Christopher called Sunday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. He called again Monday morning. I answered on the third ring, after I'd had my coffee, and felt steady enough to hold a conversation that might hurt. Mom, he said, and I could hear everything in that one word. Guilt, shame, hope that I'd make it easier for him. I didn't. Christopher. Can I come over? Please, I need to talk to you. Are you coming alone? A pause. Tori wants to come too. If that's okay. I almost said no. Almost told him that Victoria had done enough damage and didn't get to participate in the repair. But that would have been petty, and I was trying not to be petty even though petty felt satisfying. Come at 2, I said. I have errands before that. I didn't have errands. I just wanted them to know I had a life that didn't revolve around their convenience. They arrived at 2:03. Christopher looked like he hadn't slept. Victoria looked worse. Her hair was in a ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of the designer clothes she'd been wrapped in every other time I'd seen her. I let them in, offered coffee. They both declined. We sat in the living room, the same room where they'd asked me for $50,000, and the symmetry wasn't lost on any of us. Mom. Christopher started, then stopped. Started again? I don't know how to say this. Try using words, I said. Not cruel, just factual. He nodded. I've been thinking about what Eleanor said, about how I treated you, about the wedding, about everything. And she was right. I was so focused on having this perfect day that I forgot about the person who made it possible. You didn't forget, I said quietly. You chose not to see. He flinched. Good. You're right, he said. I knew you'd taken out a loan. I knew you'd emptied your savings. But I let myself believe that was just what parents did, that you wanted to do it. I did want to do it, I said. But wanting to and being able to are different things, and you knew the difference. You just didn't want to deal with it. Victoria spoke then, her voice small. Mrs. Hayes, I pushed for the big wedding. The venue, the flowers, everything. Christopher wanted something smaller, but I convinced him we deserved something special. Something people would remember. Well, they'll remember it, I said. Just not for the reasons you planned. She nodded, accepting that. I come from a family where money talks, where how things look matters more than how things are. And I brought that into our relationship, into our wedding planning. I made Christopher feel like if we didn't do it right, we'd be failures. And I let her. Christopher said. I should have said no. Should have told her we could have something beautiful that didn't cost you everything. But I wanted to make her happy. Wanted to impress her family. Wanted to prove I could give her the life she was used to. By taking mine, I said. Silence. Heavy and true. Yes, he said finally. By taking yours. I looked at my son, at the man he'd become, at the mistakes he was owning. It would have been easier if he'd stayed defensive, if he'd made excuses. But he was sitting here in my living room, admitting he'd been wrong. And that took courage. What do you want from me? I asked. Forgiveness? Absolution? Permission to stop feeling guilty? I want to make it right, he said. I don't know how, but I want to try. You can't give me back 5 years, I said. You can't undo the loan. You can't make the wedding not have happened the way it happened. I know, he said. But we can help. We can pay you back. I don't want your money, I said, and I meant it. If I take your money, then this becomes a transaction, a debt you can settle and forget about. That's not what I need. Then what do you need? Victoria asked. I thought about that, about what I'd lost that night at Lakeview Hall. It wasn't just money. It was dignity, visibility, the acknowledgement that I mattered in my son's life. I need you to remember, I said. I need you to remember what it cost me to give you that day. Not so you feel guilty forever, but so you understand what sacrifice looks like, what love looks like when it's not convenient or Instagram-worthy. Christopher's eyes filled. I'll remember, Mom. I promise. And I need you to do better, I said. Not just with me, with each other, with whatever family you build. I need you to not repeat this pattern, to not value appearance over substance, to not make your children pay for your dreams. We will, Victoria said. We'll do better. I wanted to believe them, but belief had to be earned now. Trust had been broken, and broken things don't heal just because you apologize for breaking them. There's something else, Christopher said. He glanced at Victoria, and she nodded. We've been talking. About the loan. About how to help without making it a transaction like you said. Christopher, we want to pay half, he said quickly, not to erase what we did. But because it's not fair that you carry this alone, we're the reason you took it out. We should carry some of the weight. Half the payments, Victoria added. $222.50 a month, for the full 60 months. We've already talked to our bank. We can afford it if we cut back on some things. Things we don't actually need. I stared at them, at their earnest faces, at the spreadsheet Christopher had pulled up on his phone, showing their budget, the places they could trim, the sacrifices they were willing to make. You don't have to decide now, Christopher said, but think about it, please. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Okay, I said. Okay? Christopher looked stunned, like he'd expected a fight. Okay, I repeated. You pay half. I pay half. We both carry the weight. But if you miss a payment, if you decide it's too hard or not worth it, the deal's off. I won't chase you. I won't remind you. I'll just know. We won't miss a payment, Victoria said firmly. You have my word. Your word didn't mean much a week ago, I said, not unkindly. Just truthfully. She swallowed hard. I know, but it will now. I promise you that. We sat with that for a moment. Then Christopher did something I didn't expect. He stood, walked over to where I sat, and knelt beside my chair like he had at the wedding. "Mom, I love you, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I mean both of those things." I touched his hair, the way I had when he was small and scared and needed to know someone was there. "I love you too," I said, "even when I'm angry at you, even when you hurt me. That doesn't go away just because you mess up." He leaned into my touch, and for a moment he was 8 again. 10, 16. All the ages he'd ever been, folded into this one moment of needing his mother to tell him he was still loved despite everything. Victoria was crying quietly on the couch. I looked at her, this young woman who'd come into my life with sharp edges and impossible expectations, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Possibility. Not who she'd been, but who she might become. Victoria, I said. She looked up, wiping her eyes. "You're going to be part of this family for a long time, and that means we're going to hurt each other, disappoint each other, make mistakes, but it also means we show up, we try, we do the work even when it's hard. Can you do that?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, Mrs. Hayes, I can." "Then call me Margaret," I said. Mrs. Hayes was my mother-in-law, and she terrified me. I'd rather we start with something friendlier. She smiled through her tears. "Margaret, they stayed for another hour. We didn't talk about the wedding. We talked about smaller things. Christopher's job, Victoria's work, the apartment they were renting, their plans for the future, normal things, family things. When they left, Christopher hugged me long and hard. Victoria hugged me too, tentative at first, then tighter when I hugged her back. "Thank you," Victoria whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on us." I watched them drive away, and when their car disappeared around the corner, I went back inside and sat at the kitchen table. The loan papers were still there, but they felt different now. Lighter. Shared. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. Transferred the first payment, $222.50 instead of $445. The math looked better already. My phone buzzed. "A text from Eleanor. How'd it go?" "Better than expected," I typed back. "They're paying half good. They should. But that's not why I'm texting. I want to take you to lunch on Thursday. My treat. No arguments." I smiled. "Okay. Wear something comfortable. We're going somewhere nice, but I don't trust places where the chairs are uncomfortable." Deal. Thursday came. Eleanor picked me up in an old Cadillac that looked like it had been well loved for 30 years. The oxygen tank sat in the passenger seat like a co-pilot. "Back seat's comfier," she said when I got in, "and I like having company up front." We drove to a small Italian place on the edge of town, the kind with checkered tablecloths and pictures of Italy on the walls that probably weren't Italy, but looked convincing enough. A man with gray hair and an apron greeted Eleanor like she was family. "Eleanor, where you been? 3 weeks, you don't come see me." "I've been busy, Marco, causing trouble. You know how it is." He laughed, kissed both her cheeks, and led us to a corner booth. The oxygen tank fit under the table like it had been designed for it. "This is Margaret," Eleanor said, "the woman I told you about." Marco's face shifted into something softer. "Ah, the wedding. The speech. My wife watched it on Facebook. Made her cry." I blinked. "Someone recorded it?" "Honey, someone always records it," Eleanor said. "You're famous now. At least for another week until someone else does something dramatic at a wedding." I didn't know how to feel about that. "You did good," Marco said seriously. "Standing up for yourself. That takes courage." He pressed a menu into my hands. "Order whatever you want. Today, Eleanor pays." "Today, Eleanor always pays," Eleanor said. "It's the least I can do after blowing up your life." "You didn't blow up my life," I said. "You just made everyone look at the explosion that was already happening," she grinned. "I like the way you put things," we ordered. "Pasta for me," Risotto for Eleanor. Bread that came warm with butter that melted on contact. We ate slowly, the way people do when time isn't the point. I've been thinking, Eleanor said between bites, about what you said at the wedding, about wanting one seat, for someone special. I did say that. Who was it for? I hesitated, then decided honesty had gotten me this far. Robert, my husband. He died 7 years ago. I wanted him there, even if it was just a chair with a memory in it. Eleanor set down her fork. That's beautiful, and heartbreaking, and they should have given you that chair, without question. They were too busy counting numbers. Numbers don't matter when you're counting people, Eleanor said. That's the mistake everyone makes. They think bodies and seats equal success. But you can have 300 people at a wedding and still miss the one person who should have been front and center. Is that why you spoke up? I asked. Because you've been invisible too? Every woman my age has been invisible, she said. We get to a certain point and suddenly we're furniture. Useful when needed, ignored otherwise. I decided a long time ago I wasn't going to be quiet about it. You weren't quiet at the wedding? No, she agreed. I wasn't, and I'd do it again. We finished our meal. Marco brought tiramisu without asking. 2 spoons, 1 dessert. On the house, he said. For the lady who said what everyone was thinking. We ate the tiramisu slowly, savoring it. When we were done, Eleanor leaned back and looked at me with those sharp eyes that saw too much. What are you going to do now? She asked. Keep living, I said. Keep paying the loan. Keep teaching if I can pick up substitute work. Keep being Christopher's mother, even when it's hard. That's good, she said. But what are you going to do for you? I didn't have an answer. You spent 50 years taking care of other people, Eleanor said. Your husband, your son, your students. When do you take care of yourself? I don't know, I admitted. Then figure it out, she said gently, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And you, Margaret Hayes, are running on fumes. She drove me home, walked me to the door even though the oxygen tank made her slow. Call me if you need anything, she said, or if you just want to complain about ungrateful children. I'm an excellent listener and an even better complainer. Thank you, Eleanor. Don't thank me, she said. Just promise me you'll do something for yourself, something small. Something that reminds you that you're more than just a mother and a teacher and a loan payment. I promise, I said. And I meant it. 2 weeks after lunch with Eleanor, I woke to knocking that didn't sound like sales or delivery. Purposeful, patient, the kind that says, I'll wait. I opened the door to a woman in her early 60s, gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a navy blazer and boots that had seen real weather. Her face was familiar in the way faces are when you've seen them in grief. Mrs. Hayes, she said. Michelle Grant. We met at the wedding. Briefly. I remembered. She'd been standing near Eleanor during the speech. Hadn't said much. Had nodded a lot. I remember, I said. Please come in. She stepped inside, glanced around with the quick assessment of someone who notices things. Saw the loan papers still on the counter, the stack of bills, the careful economy of a house where every dollar has a job. I'll get to the point, she said once we were seated. I run a distribution company, Grant Logistics. We handle inventory for retail chains. Nothing glamorous but steady work. I need someone for morning shifts. 4 days a week, 6 to 10. Scanning pallets, spot-checking orders, catching mistakes before they become expensive. I waited. There was more. You taught high school for 35 years, she continued. That means you know how to manage chaos, spot patterns, and tell people they're wrong, without making them cry. Those are exactly the skills I need. Why me? I asked. Because Eleanor told me what you did, what you paid, what you carried. And because I know what it's like to need work that doesn't feel like charity. She slid a paper across the table. Job description, schedule, pay rate, $21 per hour. No heavy lifting, she said. No ladder heroics. You come in, do the work, go home. If you hate it after a week, we shake hands and part ways. If you like it, it's yours as long as you want it. I looked at the paper. Did the math. 4 mornings, 4 hours each. 16 hours a week. 36 lurks before taxes. Flat $200 a month, roughly. Enough to take the edge off the loan payments. Enough to breathe. When would I start? Tomorrow, if you want. Or take the weekend to think about it. I'll start tomorrow. She smiled, stood, shook my hand with a grip that had loaded trucks and signed contracts. 6 a.m. The address is on that sheet. Wear comfortable shoes. We'll get you set up. After she left, I called Christopher. I got a job, I said when he answered. A job? Mom, you don't need to. I want to, I said. 4 mornings a week. Warehouse work. Nothing heavy. It'll help with the payments. He was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. I need to do this. Okay, he said. But if it's too much, I'll tell you, I promised. That night I set my alarm for 5. Laid out clothes, made coffee in advance, fell asleep thinking about pallet numbers and order codes, about the good exhaustion that comes from honest work. The warehouse smelled like cardboard and possibility. Michelle met me at the door with a tablet and a yellow safety vest. Margaret, she said. This is Patricia. She'll show you the ropes. Patricia was younger than me by a decade. Built like she'd spent her life moving things that didn't want to move. She had kind eyes and a handshake that meant business. Morning shifts are the best, she said, leading me through the floor. Quiet, focused, no drama. We get the trucks unloaded, check the orders. Flag problems. Simple. She showed me how to scan the barcodes, match them to the digital orders, mark discrepancies. It was simple, repetitive. Exactly what I needed. See this? Patricia pointed to a pallet stacked higher than safe. That's what we call optimistic engineering. Kid who did it thinks speed beats physics. A young man with fresh tattoos on his forearms was adjusting the stack, trying to make it work. Hey, Patricia called. James, that's too high. I got it, he said, confidence outweighing caution. You got ambition, Patricia corrected. What you need is gravity insurance. Bring it down 2 layers. He looked at me, then at Patricia, then at the stack. Brought it down. Good choice, Patricia said. Fast is great. Safe is better. By 10, my knees were reporting in but not filing complaints. Patricia clapped once. The universal signal for shift's over. Good first day, she said. You're careful. We like careful. I drove home, showered. Paid the utility bill online. $53. On time, no late fee. Small victory. Then I sat at the kitchen table and added a new line to the ledger. Not in the debit column, in the credit column. Warehouse. 336. It felt like breathing after holding your breath too long. The second week, James tried the tall stack again. I watched him look around, checking for witnesses. James, I said, not loud. Just present. He stopped. Grinned sheepishly. Mrs. Hayes. Margaret. And you know that stack's a lawsuit waiting to happen? I'm quick, though. Being quick doesn't help if you're under a pallet. He laughed, brought it down. You sound like my grandma. Your grandma sounds smart. Work found its rhythm. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 6 to 10. Scan, match, flag, repeat. Come home. Substitute, teach on Fridays when the district called. Keep the house. Keep the bills paid. Keep moving forward. On the 3rd week, the loan payment drafted from my account. $445. Then, an hour later, Christopher's transfer landed. $20.50. I opened the manila folder and logged both entries. Side by side. Debit. Credit. The universe keeping score. One Thursday evening, Christopher called. Mom, can Victoria and I come by this weekend? Of course. Saturday? Around 2? I'll make coffee. They arrived with nervous energy. Victoria carried a folder. Christopher carried weight in his shoulders. We sat at the table, The same table where they'd asked for $50,000. The symmetry wasn't lost on anyone. Mom, Christopher said, we've been thinking. About? About the loan. About what we asked you to do. Victoria opened the folder. Inside, a document. Simple, clean, 1 page. We want to pay more, she said. Not half. All of it. I looked at the paper. Looked at them. We can afford it. Christopher continued. If we cut back on some things, eating out less, 1 car instead of 2, smaller apartment when the lease is up. We've been living like we're rich. We're not. But you gave us everything like you were. I want to do this, Victoria said quietly. Not because I have to. Because it's right. I stared at the document, at their signatures already on it, at the blank line waiting for mine. No, I said. They both froze. Not all of it, I continued. Half was the deal. Half is fair. You carry your part. I carry mine. That's how this works. But Mom, no, I said firmly. This isn't about money anymore. It's about all of us learning to carry our own weight. You pay half. I pay half. We both learn what it costs. Deal? Christopher's eyes filled. Deal! I signed the paper. We each kept a copy. There's one more thing, Victoria said. She pulled out another envelope. This is the first payment. For this month. We're starting now, not next month. I took it, held it, felt the weight of their intention. Thank you, I said. We're sorry, Christopher said, for all of it. I know. After they left, I sat with the envelope. Thought about Eleanor, about her fierce insistence that people be seen, about how that one moment at the wedding had rippled into this. My son and his wife learning to be better. Worth it, I thought. All of it. Worth it. October came with its usual drama. Leaves turning, air sharpening, everything preparing to let go. The warehouse stayed steady. Patricia taught me which drivers to trust and which to count behind. James stopped trying to impress gravity and started asking questions about school. He was thinking about night classes, wanted to know if it was worth it. It's always worth it, I said. Knowledge is the one thing no one can take back. At home, I picked up substitute teaching 3 days a week. 6th grade English! The kids were chaos wrapped in potential. They reminded me why I'd loved teaching, why I'd chosen a profession that paid in moments instead of money. One afternoon, Eleanor called. How are you? I asked. Tired, she admitted. But that's nothing new. Listen, I'm having some people over next weekend. Small gathering, food, conversation. I want you there. I'd love to. Good. Bring yourself. That's all you need. The gathering was in Eleanor's backyard. 30 people, maybe. Neighbors, friends, people who'd known her for decades, and people who'd met her once and been changed by it. I brought potato salad. Eleanor hugged me at the door. You look good, she said. Work suits you? It does. Told you. Doing something for yourself changes everything. We ate. We talked. I met Eleanor's sister, Victoria's mother, for the 2nd time. She was warmer now, less guarded. Eleanor's speech at the wedding had cracked something open between them. Thank you, she said to me quietly, for being patient with my daughter, with all of us. She's learning, I said. We all are. Late in the evening, Eleanor pulled me aside. I need to tell you something, she said. Her voice was different. Careful. What's wrong? I have cancer. Stage 4, lungs. The world tilted. Eleanor, I'm not telling you for pity, she said quickly. I'm telling you because I don't have a lot of time. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. And I want to do something while I'm still here to see it. What do you need? I want to start something. With you. That seat you asked for at the wedding. The one they wouldn't give you. I want to make sure other people get theirs. A fund. For seats. For moments that matter. A seat fund, I said. Exactly. I have some money. No kids. No husband. It should go somewhere that matters. To people who matter. Will you help me? I thought about table 14, about sitting there in the cheap seats while everyone important sat up front, about Eleanor standing up and refusing to let me be invisible. "Yes," I said. "I'll help you." She smiled. "Good, because I'm not doing this alone, and neither are you." November hit Seattle like a fist. Cold, wet. The kind of weather that finds every gap in your defense. The forecast called for snow. Real snow. Not the dusting Seattle usually got, but inches. The weatherman sounded almost gleeful about it. At the warehouse, Michelle sent us home early. "Roads are going to be bad," she said. "Get home. Stay home. We'll see you Monday." I stopped at the pharmacy on the way back. Needed my prescription refilled. The place was packed. Everyone stocking up like the apocalypse was coming. When I got to the counter, the pharmacist shook her head. "Mrs. Hayes, insurance won't authorize until Saturday. You've got 2 days left in your current bottle. Can I pay out of pocket?" She told me the price. I did the math. Decided I'd stretch the current bottle. "I'll come back Saturday," I said. "Be careful out there," she said, slipping a packet of tissues into my bag like that would help against winter. At home, I salted the front steps, moved the shovel to the porch, made soup, settled in to wait out the storm. By evening, the snow started, quiet at first, then insistent. Christopher texted, "Stay inside. Roads are terrible. We're good here." I texted back, "I'm fine. Stay warm." By 8, the wind picked up. The house creaked. The old furnace fired and fired again, working overtime. I went out to throw more salt on the steps. The cold hit like a wall. I worked carefully, spreading it into the grooves where footsteps always went. When I reached the top step, my boot slipped, just a little, then a lot. Then I was falling. I hit hard. Left side. Pain shot through my ribs, sharp and bright. I lay there taking inventory. Hands worked. Feet worked. Head okay. Ribs screaming. I tried to sit up. The ribs objected with authority. My phone was in my coat pocket. Getting to it meant moving in ways my body didn't want to move. But I managed. I looked at my contacts. Christopher, Eleanor, Michelle, Victoria. Pride said, "Wait. Call in the morning. You're fine." The ice said, "You're not fine, and morning might be too late." I called Victoria. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret?" "I fell," I said. "On the front steps. I think I broke something." "We're 3 blocks away. Don't move." "I'm coming now." She arrived in 4 minutes. Crampons on her boots. Metal spikes I'd teased her about when I first saw them in her closet. She knelt beside me, assessed quickly, didn't panic. "We're going to stand up slow," she said. "I've got you." She did. She took most of my weight, guided me upright inch by inch. When I was standing, she kept her hand on my arm. "Hospital," she said. "I'm fine. You're not. And we're not arguing about this." She helped me into her car. Had already warmed it. Had blankets in the back. "Where's Christopher?" I asked. "Home. I didn't call him yet. Didn't want him driving in this." She drove like she'd been trained for it. Slow. Careful. Respectful of physics. At the ER, she got me a wheelchair, checked me in, gave my information like she'd known it her whole life. "What happened?" the nurse asked. "I lost a fight with my front steps," I said. She smiled, typed, wrapped a bracelet around my wrist. Victoria stayed, sat beside me in the waiting room, didn't fill the silence with chatter. "Thank you," I said. "You'd do it for me." "I would." "I know." They took me back after an hour. X-rays, CT scan, a doctor with tired eyes and gentle hands. 3 fractured ribs, she said. "No punctured lung, which is good. But you're going to hurt for a while. 6 weeks minimum. No heavy lifting, no reaching. Lots of rest." They wrapped me, gave me prescriptions, instructions, released me with Victoria still waiting. "I'm taking you home," she said. "And I'm staying." "You don't have to." "I'm staying." She helped me into the house. Up the steps we'd salted together. Into the living room. Couch or bed? She asked. Couch. I can't lie flat yet. She got pillows, blankets, made tea. Called Christopher. Your mom's okay, I heard her say. I'll explain everything. Just stay there. Roads are terrible. She hung up. Sat in the chair across from me. He wanted to come, she said. I told him to wait until morning. That was smart. I learned from someone good. We sat in the quiet. The house settled around us. Outside, the snow kept falling. I'm sorry, Victoria said suddenly. For the wedding. For everything. For making you feel like you didn't matter. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. I want to be better. For Christopher. For you. For the kids we might have someday. I don't want to be the person I was at that wedding. Then don't be, I said simply. Choose different. Every day, she nodded. I will. She stayed all night. Dozed in the chair. Woke when I shifted. Brought water when I needed it. Didn't make a performance of helping. Just helped, morning. Christopher arrived with breakfast. He hugged me carefully, avoiding the ribs. Mom, he said. God, I'm okay. You could have called me. Victoria was closer. He looked at his wife. Something passed between them. Understanding. Partnership. Thank you, he said to her. Of course, she said. They stayed through the weekend, made meals, answered the door when neighbors brought casseroles, fielded calls, made sure I rested. On Sunday evening before they left, Christopher sat beside me on the couch. We're gonna help more, he said. With the house. With whatever you need. You don't have to do everything alone. I know, do you? Because you're really good at carrying everything by yourself. I thought about that. About Eleanor's words. Let people carry the heavy end sometimes. I'm learning, I said. Good. After they left, I sat in the quiet house and felt something shift. Not just in my ribs. In the foundation. In the way the story was being written. This wasn't about me sacrificing alone anymore. This was about all of us learning to carry each other. Together. The ribs took their time healing. 6 weeks, the doctor had said. She was optimistic. I went back to the warehouse after 2 weeks against everyone's advice. Michelle put me on light duty. Clipboard work, no lifting, no reaching. Patricia watched me like a hawk. You're stubborn, she said. I'm consistent, I corrected. That's what stubborn people call it. But the work helped. Gave me rhythm. Gave me purpose beyond sitting at home waiting for bones to knit. Christopher and Victoria came by twice a week. Brought groceries. Fixed things I hadn't asked them to fix. Stayed for dinner. We were learning a new choreography. The dance of family that isn't performing. Just present. One Friday afternoon, I found a white envelope under my door. No return address. My name printed in careful letters. Inside, a cashier's check for $1,000 and a note with 3 words, for the seat. I stood at the counter holding it, feeling the weight of intention. I didn't know who'd sent it. Didn't need to know. What mattered was the gesture, the acknowledgement that seats, real seats, meaningful seats, were worth funding. Called Eleanor. Someone sent me $1,000, I said. For the seat. Good, she said, unsurprised. What are you going to do with it? I don't know yet. Yes, you do. You're going to use it to give someone else a seat. Someone who needs one. Someone who's sitting at table 14 when they deserve better. That's a lot of pressure for $1,000. It's not the money, Eleanor said. It's the intention. Start small. Build it. See what happens? Will you help? Until I can't anymore, she said. Which might not be as long as we'd like. Her voice was thinner now. The oxygen louder in the background. The cancer was moving faster than the doctors had predicted. How are you feeling? I asked. Tired, angry, grateful. Sometimes all at once. Can I do anything? Come to dinner, she said. Sunday. I'm having a few people over. Small thing. Meaningful thing. Bring Christopher and Victoria. I want to see what you've built. Sunday arrived cold and clear. I picked up sunflowers on the way. Eleanor's favorite. They didn't apologize when they wilted. Eleanor's house was warm, full of people who mattered. Her sister, a few neighbors, Michelle Grant, Patricia from the warehouse, and Christopher and Victoria, who arrived with wine and nervous energy. Eleanor sat in a chair by the window, oxygen tank beside her, dressed in purple. She looked smaller than she had at the wedding, but her eyes were just as sharp. "There's my troublemakers," she said when we walked in. Christopher laughed. "Is that what we are?" "You were. Now you're just people trying to be better." "That's an upgrade. We ate. We talked. Stories layered on stories. Eleanor told the one about threatening a restaurant manager over undercooked chicken. Michelle told the one about a forklift driver who couldn't parallel park to save his life. Christopher told the story of the wedding, his version, with the embarrassment still fresh. "I thought I was the main character," he said. "Turns out I was just the obstacle." "We're all the obstacle sometimes," Eleanor said. "The trick is figuring it out before you ruin everything." After dinner, Eleanor asked for quiet. "I want to show you something," she said. She gestured to me. I pulled out the white envelope, set it on the table. "This came last week," I said. $1,000. Anonymous. The note said it was for the seat. I looked around the table. No one confessed. "I don't need to know who sent it," I continued. "What matters is what we do with it. Eleanor and I have been talking about starting something, a fund for seats, for people who need to be present at things that matter but can't afford to be. A seat fund," Victoria said softly. "Exactly. We'll use this to buy plane tickets, train tickets, event fees, whatever it takes to make sure people get to show up, to be seen, to matter." Eleanor smiled. "Table 14 taught us something. It taught us that where you sit says something about how you're valued. And we're going to make sure people are valued right." Christopher cleared his throat. "I want to contribute. To the fund, not as apology. As participation. Me too," Victoria said. "Me 3, Michelle added. Around the table, people nodded, pulled out checkbooks, made pledges. By the end of the evening, the fund had $3,200. Eleanor lifted her glass. Water, but she lifted it like champagne. "To seats," she said. "To showing up. To making sure everyone knows they matter." "To seats," we echoed. Later, as people were leaving, Eleanor pulled me aside. "This is going to outlive me," she said. "You know that, right? Don't talk like that." "I'm dying, Margaret. We can say it out loud. But this—" She gestured to the room, to the people, to the fund. "This keeps going. You keep it going. I will. Promise me something else. Anything. When I die, don't make the funeral boring. Make it about this. About seats. About showing up. Make people laugh. Make them remember that life is short, and love is shorter, and we don't have time to waste on table 14. I promise." She hugged me, carefully, because my ribs were still tender, and hers were worse. "You're going to be fine," she whispered. "Better than fine. You're going to change things." "We're going to change things," I corrected. "That's the spirit." I drove home with Christopher and Victoria following in their car. When we pulled into my driveway, they parked behind me. "Want to come in?" I asked. "Just for a minute," Christopher said. Inside, I made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where everything had started, where they'd asked for $50,000, where I'd said yes even though I shouldn't have. "Mom," Christopher said, "I've been thinking about that seat. The one you asked for at the wedding. The one we said no to. It's in the past. No, it's not. Because I never asked who it was for." I hesitated, then decided honesty had gotten us this far. "Your father, Robert. I wanted a seat for him, even if it was empty. even if it was just symbolic. I wanted him there. Christopher's face crumpled. Oh, Mom, I know it sounds silly. It's not silly, Victoria said, her voice tight. It's beautiful, and we should have given it to you without question. We should have given you a lot of things, Christopher added. A seat, acknowledgement, respect. We were so busy making the day perfect that we forgot what actually mattered. You're learning, I said. That's what counts. We want to do something, Victoria said. For the fund. Beyond just money. What do you mean? We want to be part of it. Actively. Help find people who need seats. Help make it happen. Make this a real thing, not just a nice idea. I looked at them. At my son and his wife. At the people they were becoming. Okay, I said. Let's make it real. That night, I took Robert's blue scarf from the cedar chest. The one the one Robert used to wear when we'd drive north to see the leaves. The one I'd kept because it still smelled like him. Faintly, if I held it close enough. I draped it over the chair beside me at the kitchen table. Smoothed it like a hand. We're doing something good, I told the empty chair. Something that matters. I think you'd like it. The scarf didn't answer. But the house felt warmer, like permission had been granted. I opened a new notebook. Wrote at the top, the seat fund. Below it, the first entry. $3,200. Collected at Eleanor's dinner. Purpose, to make sure people show up where they're needed. Then I wrote the rules. No one sits at table 14 alone. Love requires presence, not just promises. Everyone deserves a seat. I closed the notebook. Left it on the table beside the blue scarf. Tomorrow the work would start. We'd find the first person who needed a seat. We'd make it happen. We'd prove that Eleanor's speech at the wedding wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. But tonight, I sat in my small kitchen with my small but growing fund and my dead husband's scarf and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the desperate kind that begs for rescue. The steady kind that builds foundations. The kind that lasts. 5 years would pass. The fund would grow. Eleanor would die and be remembered. Babies would be born. Payments would be made. Lives would be changed. But it all started here, at this table, with $1,000, a blue scarf, and a promise that no one would ever sit at table 14, alone again. The weeks turned into months. Fall arrived with its usual drama. Leaves turning, air sharpening. Everything's preparing to let go. Christopher and Victoria kept their promise. Every month on the 15th, $222.50 appeared in my account. They never missed. They never made excuses. They just paid, quietly. Like they understood that consistency was its own kind of apology. We had dinner once a month. Sometimes at my house, sometimes at theirs. The conversations got easier. Victoria learned to cook. Badly at first, then better. Christopher learned to ask about my life, instead of just reporting on his. We weren't fixed, but we were fixing. And that was enough. I took Eleanor's advice. Started doing things for myself. Small things. A pottery class at the community center on Tuesday nights. A subscription to the streaming service I had canceled when money got tight. Sunday mornings at the diner with a book and coffee that someone else made. I picked up substitute teaching 3 days a week. 6th grade English. The kids were chaotic and wonderful, and reminded me why I'd loved teaching in the first place. The paychecks helped with the loan. The routine helped with everything else. One Saturday in late October, I was in the garden, pulling up dead plants and preparing the beds for winter, when Eleanor called. "I need you to come over," she said. No preamble. No small talk. Now. She lived in a small house on the south side of town. Yellow paint, white trim, a porch that wrapped around like a hug. When I pulled up, she was sitting on the porch swing, oxygen tank beside her, a blanket over her lap despite the mild weather. "You look tired," I said, climbing the steps. "I am tired," she said. "Sit," I sat. The swing creaked gently beneath us. I have cancer, she said. Matter of fact. No drama. My heart dropped. Eleanor, stage 4, lungs, which is ironic considering they've been giving me trouble for years anyway. Doctor says I've got maybe 6 months, maybe less if I'm unlucky, maybe more if I'm stubborn, which I am. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry yet, she said. Save it for the funeral. Right now I need something from you. Anything. She looked at me with those sharp eyes, the ones that had seen through Christopher and Victoria at the wedding, the ones that seemed to see through everything. I want you to help me plan something, she said. A party, not a funeral. A party while I'm still alive to enjoy it. Something small, meaningful. The people who matter, not the people who should matter. Okay, I said. And I want you to help me with something else, she said. She reached into the bag beside the swing and pulled out a checkbook, opened it, wrote something, tore it out and handed it to me. I looked at the check. $10,000, made out to me. Eleanor, I can't— Yes, you can, she said firmly. I don't have kids, no husband. My sister is Victoria's mother, and we haven't spoken in 15 years. You know why I was at that wedding? Because Victoria invited me out of obligation, not love. Because her mother wanted to look like she had family unity. That doesn't mean— It means I get to decide what to do with my money, she said. And I'm deciding to give you this. Pay off part of that loan, or all of it, or save it. I don't care, but take it. Because the one thing I learned from getting this diagnosis is that money doesn't mean anything if you don't spend it on people who matter. I stared at the check, at the number, at Eleanor's shaky handwriting. You matter to me, she said quietly. You sat with me at table 14 when everyone else wanted to pretend we weren't there. You listened to me complain about the cheap napkins and the small centerpieces. You made me laugh, and then you let me blow up your son's wedding without being mad at me for it. I wasn't mad, I said. I was grateful. Then be grateful enough to take the check, she said. Let an old woman do one good thing before she dies. I folded the check carefully, put it in my pocket. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just use it. And help me throw a party that doesn't make me want to die early, I laughed despite myself. Deal. We planned the party for 3 weeks out. Eleanor's backyard. 60 people, the ones who mattered. She made a list, argued with herself about half the names, then told me to invite them all because even the people she wasn't sure about deserved a chance to say goodbye. Christopher and Victoria helped. They set up tables, hung lights, ordered food from Marco's restaurant. They didn't ask questions about why I was suddenly helping plan a party for Eleanor. They just showed up and did the work. The day of the party was cold and bright. The kind of November day that feels borrowed from October. Eleanor wore a purple dress and pearls. Her oxygen tank had a decorative cover that looked like a small rolling suitcase. She'd made it herself. If I have to drag this thing around, she'd said, it should at least look intentional. People arrived in waves. Neighbors, old friends, distant relatives. Victoria's mother came, looking uncomfortable and out of place. She stood near the edge of the yard, holding a glass of wine like a shield. Eleanor saw her and sighed. I should talk to her. You don't have to. I do. I'm dying. If I don't say what needs to be said now, I never will. She crossed the yard slowly. I watched them talk, saw Victoria's mother's face shift from defensive to shocked, to something softer. Saw Eleanor's hand reach out and touch her sister's arm. Saw them both cry. When Eleanor came back, she looked exhausted but lighter. What did you say? I asked. That I forgive her, Eleanor said. For the things she did when we were young. For the ways she hurt me. And that I'm sorry for the ways I hurt her back. Life's too short to die angry at your sister. I hugged her, carefully, because she felt fragile now in a way she hadn't before. Thank you for this, she said. For all of it. You're welcome. The party went late. People told stories. Eleanor laughed until she coughed, then laughed more. At one point, she stood, shakily, but she stood, and thanked everyone for coming, for being part of her life, for mattering. "I don't believe in regrets," she said. "But if I did, my only one would be not doing this sooner, not gathering you all together and telling you what you mean to me. So if you take anything from today, take this. Don't wait. Don't wait for a diagnosis or a wedding disaster or a wake-up call to tell people they matter. Do it now. Do it messily. Do it even if it's awkward, because time doesn't wait, and neither should you." People clapped. Some cried. I did both. When the party ended and the last guests left, Christopher, Victoria, and I helped Eleanor clean up. She sat in a chair and directed us like a conductor, telling us where things went, what to save, what to throw away. "You're good kids," she told Christopher and Victoria. "You messed up, but you fixed it. That counts for something?" "We're trying," Christopher said. "Keep trying," Eleanor said. "That's all anyone can ask." When we finished, Eleanor walked me to my car. The oxygen tank rattled softly behind her. "I'm glad I met you," she said. "Me too." "Promise me something. Anything. When I die, don't let them make my funeral boring. Play good music. Tell funny stories. Make people laugh. I don't want anyone crying unless they're crying because they're laughing too hard. I promise." She hugged me. "Good. Now go home. I'm tired and you hovering isn't helping." I drove home with Eleanor's check still in my pocket. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and looked at it for a long time. Then I logged into my bank account and did the math. With $10,000, I could pay off nearly half the loan, could reduce my monthly payments, could breathe easier for the first time in months. But Eleanor hadn't given me the money to make my life easier. She'd given it to me to do something meaningful, something that would ripple outward. I thought about that, about ripples, about how one act of kindness could spread like light. Then I made a decision. I deposited the check. Then I divided it into pieces. $3,000 toward the loan, $2,000 into a savings account for emergencies, and $5,000 into something new. Something I'd been thinking about since Eleanor's speech at the wedding. I called it the Seat Fund. The idea was simple. When someone needed help affording something important, help being seen, help mattering, the fund would cover one seat, one space, one acknowledgement that they belonged. The first seat went to Carla, a woman from church whose daughter was graduating from nursing school but who couldn't afford the travel to attend. $400 for a plane ticket, one seat in the auditorium, one mother able to watch her daughter walk across the stage. The second seat went to Marcus, a colleague whose father was in hospice 2 states away. $600 for a train ticket and a hotel, one seat at his father's bedside in the final days. The third seat went to Louise, a student I'd tutored whose GED ceremony required family to attend. Her mother was in prison. Her father was gone. So I bought myself a seat and sat in the front row and cheered when they called her name. Each time I gave a seat, I took a little less for myself, but I also felt a little fuller, like Eleanor's money was doing exactly what she'd wanted, making people feel like they mattered. Eleanor died in January, peacefully in her sleep, with her sister beside her. The funeral was exactly what she'd wanted. Loud, funny, full of stories that made people laugh until they cried. Someone played Frank Sinatra. Someone else told a story about Eleanor threatening to fight a restaurant manager over undercooked chicken. Her sister spoke about forgiveness and second chances. I spoke too, about Table 14, about the speech that changed everything. About how Eleanor taught me that being seen was a radical act. "She gave me a gift," I said. "Not just money, though she did that too. She gave me permission to matter, to take up space, to refuse to be invisible. And that's a gift I'm passing on, to anyone who needs it, to anyone who's ever sat at Table 14 and wondered if they belonged." After the funeral, Victoria's mother found me. "I want to contribute," she said. "To this seat fund Eleanor told me about. She said you were doing something meaningful with the money she gave you. You don't have to. I want to, she said firmly. Eleanor and I wasted 15 years being stubborn, being angry. I don't want to waste any more time. So take this. She handed me a check, $2,000, and use it to give someone a seat. In Eleanor's name, I took it. Thank you. Thank her, she said. She's the one who taught me it's never too late to show up. The seat fund grew. Word spread quietly, the way meaningful things do. People heard about it through church, through school, through whispered conversations in grocery store aisles. They contributed $20, $50, $100, small amounts that added up. By spring, we'd given 12 seats, a chair at a citizenship ceremony, a spot at a wedding, a place at a table during Thanksgiving for someone who had nowhere to go. Each one mattered. Each one said, "You belong here." Christopher and Victoria finished paying their half of the loan in April, 3 years ahead of schedule. They'd saved aggressively, cut costs, worked extra hours. When the final payment cleared, Christopher called me. "It's done, Mom." "I know." "Thank you. Can we take you to dinner? To celebrate?" "Only if we go to Marco's." We went to Marco's, sat in the same booth where Eleanor and I had sat, ordered too much food and ate slowly, savoring it. Halfway through the meal, Victoria reached across the table and took my hand. "Margaret, I have something to tell you." I waited. "We're pregnant." The words hung in the air like lights. Bright, surprising, perfect. "Twins," Christopher added, grinning. I felt my eyes fill. "Twins." "We wanted you to be the first to know," Victoria said. "Because you've been so patient with us, so forgiving, and we want our kids to know their grandmother, the real one, not the version we tried to hide at the wedding." "They'll know me," I said. "I promise." "We're naming one after you," Christopher said. "If it's a girl, Margaret, Maggie for short." I couldn't speak, could only nod and cry and hold their hands across the table while Marco brought us tiramisu and refused to let us pay. The twins were born in October, a boy and a girl. The girl was Maggie. The boy was Robert, named after the grandfather he'd never meet, but who'd live on in stories. I held them in the hospital, these tiny humans who smelled like new beginnings, and felt something shift in my chest. The ache that had lived there since the wedding, the one that loan payments and seat funds and pottery classes couldn't quite touch, finally eased. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was enough. Christopher and Victoria brought the babies to my house once a week. We'd sit in the backyard, the same one where Eleanor's party had been, and watch the twins sleep in their carriers while we drank coffee and talked about nothing important. One afternoon in late spring, while Maggie napped and Robert fussed softly in Christopher's arms, Victoria said, "I've been thinking about the seat fund." "Oh?" "I want to help, actively. Not just donate, but actually find people who need seats, who need to be seen. I have resources, connections. I could do more than just write checks." I looked at her, at this woman who'd been so concerned with appearances, with status, with impressing people who didn't matter. She'd changed. Motherhood had softened her. Or maybe she'd always been soft underneath and just needed permission to show it. "I'd like that," I said. "Me too," Christopher added. "I could help with the logistics, set up a proper nonprofit structure, make it official." "Eleanor would have liked that," I said. "She believed in making noise, in making things official so they couldn't be ignored." We started working on it that summer, filed paperwork, created a board, set up a website, the Eleanor Bennett Seat Fund, named after the woman who'd refused to be invisible and had taught everyone around her to do the same. By the fund's first anniversary, we'd given 53 seats, each one a story, each one a person who mattered. The loan was paid off in full by the end of year 4. I made the final payment on a Tuesday morning, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and the sunrise. When the confirmation email came, I stared at it for a long time. Then I called Christopher. "It's done. The loan?" "The loan." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "How does it feel?" "Lighter," I said. "Like I can breathe all the way down?" "Good. You deserve that." "We all do," I said. That weekend, we had a gathering in my backyard. Not a party, just people. Christopher and Victoria with the twins, Carlos and his wife, Michelle, Louise, Mara. The people who'd received seats and the people who'd given them. We sat in mismatched chairs, ate food from Marco's, and told stories about Eleanor. "She'd hate that we're making her sound like a saint," Victoria's mother said, laughing. "She was ornery and difficult and way too honest. She was perfect," I said. "She was real," Victoria corrected gently. "And that's better than perfect." We raised our glasses, water, wine, juice boxes for the toddlers who'd appeared over the years, and toasted to Eleanor. To seats, to being seen, to mattering. Later, when the sun started to set and people began gathering their things, Christopher found me by the fence, where the maple tree's shadow stretched long across the grass. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I've been thinking about the wedding, about everything that happened, and I realized I never properly apologized." "Christopher, you've apologized many times." "Not for the right thing," he said. "I apologized for taking your money, for not giving you a seat, for embarrassing you, but I never apologized for making you feel like you didn't matter, like you were just a wallet, a means to an end. That was the real harm, and I'm sorry for that." I looked at my son, at the gray starting at his temples, at the lines around his eyes from laughing with his children, at the man he'd become through trial and error, and the hard work of being better. "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." "I'm proud of what you built," he said, gesturing at the yard, at the people, at the life I'd created from the wreckage of that wedding, the seat fund, the way you turned something painful into something beautiful. That's courage. "I learned from the best," I said. "Your father taught me to keep going. Eleanor taught me to take up space. You taught me that people can change." "We're all still learning," he said. "Good. That means we're doing it right." Victoria appeared then, Maggie on her hip. "We're heading out. Maggie needs a diaper change and Robert's getting fussy." "Go," I said. "Take care of those babies." Christopher hugged me. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too." After they left, I walked through the yard, picking up stray cups and napkins. The string lights twinkled overhead, the same ones we'd hung for Eleanor's party. I'd left them up. They made the space feel permanent, intentional, like something that would last. I sat in one of the chairs and looked around, at the table that had held so many meals, at the fence that needed painting but I'd decided added character, at the house behind me, small and imperfect and completely mine. I thought about the loan papers, now marked paid in full, and filed away in a drawer I'd probably never open again. I thought about the seat fund, growing slowly but surely. I thought about Eleanor and Robert and all, the people who'd shaped me into the woman sitting in this chair, and I thought about table 14, that small table, near the kitchen doors where I'd sat in silence, feeling invisible and small and unimportant, where Eleanor had found me, where everything had changed. I'd spent so long trying to earn better tables, front row seats, recognition, visibility. But table 14 had been exactly where I needed to be, because from there I could see clearly, could see what mattered and what didn't, could see that love wasn't about where you sat, but who sat with you. My phone buzzed, a text from someone I didn't recognize. "Hi, Mrs. Hayes. My name is Jennifer. Louise gave me your number. She said you might be able to help. My mom has dementia and lives in a care facility in Phoenix. I'm in Seattle. I can't afford to visit as often as I'd like. Is there anything the seat fund can do? I typed back quickly. How often would you like to visit? Once a month. Just to sit with her. To hold her hand. To be there. I did the math in my head. Plane ticket. Seattle to Phoenix. Round trip. $300 if we booked in advance. We can do that. Give me your email and I'll send you the details. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant to need a seat. To need someone to say, you matter. You belong here. Your presence is a gift. I forwarded the request to Christopher and Victoria. Within an hour, the seat was funded. Jennifer would fly to Phoenix next week. Would sit beside her mother. Would hold her hand. Would be seen and see in return. That's what the seat fund was really about. Not money. Not charity. Not even kindness, though it was kind. It was about witnessing. About saying, I see you. You are not invisible. Your love matters. I stayed in the yard until the stars came out. Until the air turned cold enough that I needed a sweater. Until the string lights were the only brightness left. Small and steady against the dark. Inside, I made tea. Sat at the kitchen table. Opened my laptop and looked at the fund spreadsheet. 78 seats given so far. Each one a name. A story. A person who mattered. I added Jennifer to the list. Seat 79. Then I closed the laptop and looked around my small kitchen, at the chipped counters and old appliances, at the table Robert and I had bought at a yard sale, at the pictures on the refrigerator, Christopher and Victoria's wedding photo, the twins at 6 months, Eleanor at her party, grinning with her oxygen tank beside her. None of it was perfect. None of it would make a magazine. But all of it was mine, and it was enough, more than enough. I wrote in the ledger one last time, not numbers, just words. Loan, paid, debt, forgiven. Seats, claimed and given. Grace, ongoing, love. Measured not in dollars, but in presence. I closed the ledger, put it on the shelf beside the loan papers and Eleanor's thank you card from the party, and the first check I'd ever written for the seat fund. Tomorrow I'd wake up and make coffee, substitute teach, maybe visit the twins, continue the quiet work of living a life that mattered. But tonight I sat in my small kitchen, in my small house, with my small but sufficient life, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything, all of it, the pain and the beauty, the broken and the healed, had led me here, to this moment, to this table, to this chair. And from this seat, I could see everything that mattered. As spring turned to summer, the seat fund became something I hadn't expected. A community. Not just people who needed help, but people who wanted to give it. The envelope that had started with Eleanor's check now cycled through dozens of hands, filling and emptying like breath. Carlos found me after church one Sunday. He was a quiet man, early 60s, hands calloused from construction work, eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, "I heard about what you're doing. The seats." "It's not just me," I said. "It's a lot of people." "Still, I want to help. My wife became a citizen last month. Ceremony at the courthouse. We didn't think her mother could come. She's in Mexico. Visa issues. Money tight. But someone, I don't know who, bought her a plane ticket. Paid for everything. She got to see her daughter become American. Got to sit in that courtroom and cry happy tears." His voice caught. He cleared his throat. "That was the seat fund?" I asked, though I knew it was. Christopher had handled that one. "Yeah. And I want to pay it forward, however I can. Money, time, whatever you need." "Can you build things?" I asked. "I'm a carpenter. I can build anything." "Good. Because I'm thinking we need a shed to store chairs, folding ones, for when people need them." He grinned. I can do that. The shed went up in my backyard that summer. Carlos brought his tools, his truck, his 2 sons who were learning the trade. They worked on Saturdays, refusing payment, accepting only lemonade and sandwiches. Michelle showed up the 3rd week, with paint. "If you're building something permanent," she said, "it should look intentional." We painted it deep blue, the color of twilight, of possibility. "Eleanor would have liked this," I said, stepping back to admire it. "Eleanor would have demanded we paint it purple," Michelle corrected. "But blue's good too." The shed became storage and more than storage. It became a symbol. People knew what it meant. The blue shed in Margaret Hayes's backyard. The place where chairs waited for people who needed them. Louise brought her mother one afternoon. A small woman with tired eyes and hands that shook slightly. She'd been released from prison 6 months ago. Was trying to rebuild a life that had been demolished by bad choices and worse luck. "Mrs. Hayes," Louise said, "this is my mom, Rita. I wanted her to meet you, to see the place." Rita looked at the shed, at the yard, at the house behind it. "Louise told me what you did, coming to her GED ceremony, sitting in the front row, being her person when she didn't have one." "She earned that degree," I said. "I just showed up." "Showing up matters," Rita said quietly. "I didn't show up for a lot of years, for a lot of things, and my daughter paid the price, so thank you for being what I couldn't be." Louise hugged her mother. They stood there in my yard, holding each other, and I turned away to give them privacy. Some moments aren't meant to be witnessed, just held. When they left, Rita pressed something into my hand. A $20 bill, worn soft from use, for the fund, she said. "It's not much, but it's what I have." I took it. Not because I needed it, but because refusing would have taken something from her. The dignity of giving. The right to participate in grace. That $20 went toward a bus ticket for a man named Marcus, whose son was graduating high school in Portland. He hadn't seen the boy in 3 years. Work, distance, life getting in the way. The ticket got him there. Got him a seat in the bleachers. Got him one afternoon of being dad again instead of the guy who couldn't make it. The fund worked like that. Small amounts becoming big moments. $20 here, 50 there, 100 when someone had extra. It added up. Not just in money, but in proof that people cared. That showing up was a choice we could all make for each other. By the time the twins turned 1, we'd given 97 seats. Each one documented in a ledger that Christopher maintained with the precision he brought to everything. Names, dates, occasions. A record of moments that might have been missed but weren't. The birthday party for Maggie and Robert was in my backyard. Cake, balloons, too many presents from people who loved watching babies discover the world. The twins sat in high chairs, smashing cake into their faces, delighted by the mess. Eleanor's sister, I'd started thinking of her as Diane instead of Victoria's mother, brought a gift. Not for the twins, for me. "Eleanor wanted you to have this," she said, handing me a small wooden box. "She left instructions. Said to give it to you when the twins turned 1. Said you'd understand why then." I opened the box. Inside was a key. Brass, old-fashioned, the kind that opens something important. And a note in Eleanor's shaky handwriting. "Margaret, this is the key to my house. I'm leaving it to you. Not the house itself. My sister gets that and she'll probably sell it, which is fine. But the idea of the house. The idea that you deserve a space that's yours, that you've earned. Use this however makes sense. Maybe it's literal. Maybe it's metaphor. You're smart. You'll figure it out." EI stared at the key, at the note, at Eleanor's signature that looked like it had taken effort to write. "She left you the house," Diane said quietly. "She changed her will 6 months before she died. Left it to you. I get some money, which is fair. But the house goes to you. I can't—" "You can. She was very clear. Said you'd try to refuse, and I should tell you that refusing is insulting her memory. Her words, not mine." I laughed despite the tears. "That sounds like her." "The house is paid off," Diane continued. "No mortgage. Taxes are manageable. It's yours. To live in, to sell, to turn into headquarters for that seat fund. Whatever you want." I looked at Christopher, at Victoria, at the twins covered in cake, at my small house behind us, the one I'd lived in for 30 years. The one that held Robert's memory in every corner. "I don't know if I can leave this place," I said. "You don't have to decide today," Diane said. "The house will wait. Eleanor said you'd know when the time was right." The key went into my pocket. "Stayed there for weeks. I'd touch it sometimes, feeling its weight, its promise, its question. What did I want? That's what the key was really asking. Not about houses or headquarters or next steps, but about what I wanted for the life I had left. I was 69 now, healthy but aware of time's passage, aware that the years ahead were fewer than the years behind. What did I want to do with them? I thought about that while I taught, while I held the twins, while I processed applications for the seat fund and wrote checks and coordinated volunteers. And slowly, an answer formed. I wanted to grow the fund, to make it sustainable, to build something that would outlive me, that would keep giving seats long after I was gone. Eleanor's house could do that, could become a real headquarters, a place where people could come, where chairs could be stored, where the community that had formed around one seat at table 14 could gather and grow and become something permanent. I called Diane in August. "I want to accept the house." "Good. Eleanor would have haunted you if you'd said no." "I'm not moving in," I said. "I'm turning it into the seat fund headquarters, a community space, a place for the work." "Even better," Diane said. That's exactly what she would have wanted. We spent the fall preparing the house. Carlos and his sons did the renovations. Michelle painted. Louise organized files. Victoria set up the non-profit paperwork properly. Christopher built a database to track requests and donors and chairs given. The house transformed. The living room became a meeting space. The dining room became an office. The garage became storage for chairs. Folding ones, stackable ones, chairs in every size and style, waiting for people who needed them. We held an open house in November. Invited everyone who'd been part of the fund, who'd given or received, who'd shown up when showing up mattered. 90 people came, maybe more. They filled the house and spilled into the yard, ate food from Marco's, told stories, laughed, cried, connected. Carlos stood on the porch and raised his glass. "To Eleanor," he said, "who didn't let anyone forget they mattered." "To Eleanor," we echoed. "And to Margaret," Michelle added, "who took Eleanor's lesson and built something that'll outlive us all." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said the only thing that felt true. It's not about me. It's about us, all of us, choosing to see each other, choosing to show up. That's what the seat fund is. It's just organized showing up. Organized showing up, Louise repeated, grinning. I like that. That should be our motto. It became our motto. We put it on the website, on the letterhead, on the sign Carlos mounted above the front door of Eleanor's house, the Eleanor Bennett Seat Fund, organized showing up, Since year, simple, true. Eleanor would have approved. Winter came. The fund's second year ended. We'd given 142 seats, had $8,000 in the account, had 50 regular volunteers, had requests coming in faster than we could process them. It was a good problem to have. Christopher and Victoria brought the twins over on Christmas Eve. We sat in my kitchen. I'd kept my house, used Eleanor's for the fund, and watched Maggie and Robert play with wrapping paper, more interested in the crinkle than the presents. "Mom," Christopher said, "I have something for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. "For $5,000. Christopher, I can't. It's not from us," Victoria said quickly. "Well, some of it is, but most of it is from the wedding." I looked at her, confused. "We've been contacting people who attended," she explained, telling them about the seat fund, about Eleanor, about what happened that night and what came from it. A lot of them wanted to contribute, to be part of the story. "Even my father gave," Victoria said quietly. "He said he'd been thinking about his speech, about taking credit for something you'd paid for. He wanted to make it right." I stared at the check, at the amount, at the evidence that people could change, could choose better, could show up even when it was uncomfortable. "This is incredible," I said. "There's more," Christopher said. He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. It had been viewed 47,000 times. It was Eleanor's speech from the wedding. Someone had recorded it, had posted it, and it had gone viral in the quiet way meaningful things sometimes do. The comments were full of people sharing their own stories, of being invisible, of being table 14, of someone finally saying what needed to be said. "People want to help," Victoria said. "They've been emailing, asking how to contribute, how to start their own seat funds in their cities. The wedding disaster became something beautiful." I watched the video, watched Eleanor stand with her oxygen tank and her purple dress, and her refusal to be quiet. Heard her voice, strong despite the effort breathing took, telling the truth that everyone had been avoiding. "She'd be so proud," I whispered. "She is," Christopher said. "Somewhere she's watching this and laughing and telling everyone she was right." We sat in comfortable silence. The twins babbled. The lights on the Christmas tree blinked their steady rhythm. Outside, snow had started falling, soft and persistent. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Hayes? My name is David. I saw the video of Eleanor's speech. I'm getting married next month. Small wedding, but my mom can't afford to come. She's in Ohio. I'm in Seattle. Money's tight. Is there any way the seat fund could help? I want her there. I want her to matter. I showed Christopher the text. We can do that," he said immediately. "I'll handle it." "Make sure he knows," I said. "Make sure he knows to give her a real seat. Not table 14, not near the kitchen. A real seat where she can see everything." "I will," I texted David back. "We'll cover it. Your mother will be there. Give me her details and we'll arrange everything." His response came immediately. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant, because I'd been the mother in the back, the one who'd paid and been hidden, the one who'd mattered less than appearances. And now, because of Eleanor, because of one moment of radical honesty, mothers like me were being seen, were being given the seats they deserved. The fund continued to grow. By the following spring, we'd given 200 seats, had expanded beyond Seattle, had chapters starting in Portland, San Francisco, Denver, people taking the idea and running with it, creating their own networks of organized showing up. I thought about that phrase a lot. Organized showing up. It sounded simple, but it was revolutionary, because most people wanted to show up, wanted to help, wanted to matter. They just didn't know how, didn't know where to start. The seat fund gave them a way, a structure, permission to care in a tangible way. One afternoon in late May, I was at Eleanor's house. I'd started calling it the Fund House. processing applications when Angela Martinez walked in. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, surprised. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Angela. From the bank. Former bank," she corrected with a smile. "I quit 3 months ago." "Really? Why?" "Because I spent 15 years helping people go into debt for things they couldn't afford. And then I saw what you did. How you took that loan and turned it into something that mattered. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to help people in ways that actually help." She handed me her resume. "I'm applying to volunteer. I have financial experience. I can help with budgeting, accounting, making sure the money goes where it needs to go. If you'll have me." I looked at this woman who'd processed my loan, who'd shaken my hand and sent me out with paperwork that would take 5 years to pay off, who'd been part of the system that profited from desperation, and who now wanted to be part of the solution. "When can you start?" I asked. "Now," she said. "If you'll have me now." Angela became our financial manager. Volunteer at first, then part-time paid when we could afford it. She brought structure to the chaos, made sure every dollar was accounted for, every seat tracked, every person served properly. She also brought something else. Connections. She knew people at banks, at foundations, at places that had money, and wanted to give it to organizations that were doing real work. By the fund's 3rd anniversary, we had grants. Real money. Enough to hire staff, to expand operations, to give not just 200 seats a year, but 500. Then 1,000. The work grew. The team grew. The impact grew. But the heart stayed the same. One person at a time. One seat at a time. One moment of organized showing up. Christopher and Victoria's twins turned 3. Then 4. They started asking questions about the blue shed. About why Grandma's house was always full of people. About what the chairs were for. I told them about Eleanor. About Table 14. About what it meant to make sure everyone had a place to sit. "Everyone?" Maggie asked, her eyes wide. "Everyone," I confirmed. "Even if they're small? Especially if they're small. Small people need seats too." She thought about that seriously. "When I'm big, I'm going to give people seats." "Me too," Robert said, not wanting to be left out. I hugged them both. That's exactly right. The loan had been paid off for 3 years now. The paperwork was filed away, but sometimes I'd take it out and look at it. At the 60 payments, at my signature on every line, at the proof that 5 years could feel like forever, and also like nothing at all. The loan had cost me, had taken groceries and cable and new coats and dental work, had taken sleep and peace and the easy comfort of financial security. But it had also given me Christopher's apology, Victoria's change, Eleanor's friendship, the seat fund, a community, a purpose. Worth it? I didn't know. The math didn't work that way. Some things cost more than they should, and give back more than you expect. The loan was both. One Saturday in October, 5 years after the wedding, we held an anniversary celebration. Not for the wedding, for Eleanor's speech. For the moment, everything changed. We gathered at the fund house. The yard was full of chairs, hundreds of them, brought by people who'd received seats and people who'd given them. A forest of chairs. A testimony to showing up, Diane spoke first. My sister would have hated this much attention, but she would have loved seeing what came from her big mouth and her refusal to be polite. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Eleanor believed in truth. Diane continued, even when truth was uncomfortable, especially then. She believed people deserved to be seen, to matter, to take up space without apologizing for it. And Margaret, she gestured to me, took that belief and built something that'll outlive all of us. Speech. Someone called, "Speech." Others echoed. I stood reluctantly, looked at the faces looking back at me, saw Christopher and Victoria with the twins, saw Angela, Carlos, Michelle, Louise and her mother Rita, saw strangers who'd become friends through the simple act of showing up. I don't have a speech, I said. Eleanor was the speech giver. I'm just the person who listened. Then tell us what you heard. Diane said gently. I thought about that, about what Eleanor had really said that night at the wedding. Beneath the words, beneath the call-out, what was the message? I heard that being seen is a human need. I said slowly. Not a luxury, not something you earn by being important enough or rich enough or connected enough. Just a need, as basic as food or water or air. I heard that love without witness doesn't count, that you can sacrifice everything for someone, but if they don't acknowledge it, if they don't see it, then you're left holding all the weight alone. And I heard that we have a choice, every day, to see people or to look past them, to give them seats or to make them stand in the back, to organize our showing up or to let people fade into invisibility. My voice caught. I cleared my throat. Eleanor chose to see me, at table 14, when no one else was looking. And that changed everything, not just for me, for everyone here, for the 247 seats we've given in 5 years, for every person who got to be present at something that mattered because someone else chose to show up. So that's what I heard. I heard that we matter, all of us, and that making sure people know they matter. That's not charity. That's not kindness. That's just being human. That's just doing what we're supposed to do for each other. I sat down. The crowd was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. Then people were standing. Not for me. For Eleanor. For the idea. For the choice we'd all made to keep showing up. Later, when the celebration wound down and people started gathering their chairs to take home, Christopher found me by the blue shed. You did good, Mom. We did good, I corrected. All of us. Still, none of this happens without you. Without you taking Eleanor's moment and turning it into a movement. It's not a movement, I said. It's just chairs. It's never just chairs, he said. You taught me that. Victoria appeared with the twins. Maggie ran to me, wrapped herself around my legs. Grandma, when I grow up, I'm going to have a blue shed, too. You can use mine, I said. It'll still be here. Promise. Promise. She beamed, satisfied. The world was simple at 4. Promises were kept. Sheds were permanent. Grandmas were forever. Robert tugged on my hand. Can we go see the chairs? Sure, sweetheart. We walked through the yard, through the forest of chairs that people hadn't taken home yet. Each one different, each one a story, each one proof that someone had shown up. Why do people need chairs? Robert asked. Because everyone needs a place to sit, I said. A place where they belong. And sometimes people forget to save seats for the people they love. So we remind them. With chairs? With chairs. He nodded, satisfied with that logic. Everything made sense when you were 4, and your grandmother gave you simple answers. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my own kitchen, my own house, the one I'd kept even after inheriting Eleanor's, the place where Robert's memory lived, where Christopher had grown up, where I'd become myself. I made tea, sat at the table, looked at the loan papers I'd pulled out for the anniversary, paid in full, done, over, but not over, because the loan had never been just about money. It had been about what I was willing to give, what I was willing to carry, what I was willing to sacrifice for love. And the answer, I'd learned, was complicated. Yes, I'd give everything, but also I deserved to be seen for it, to be acknowledged, to matter in the story I was funding. Both things were true. I could sacrifice and still deserve recognition, could give freely and still need gratitude, could love unconditionally and still have conditions about how that love was treated. Eleanor had taught me that, had stood up and said, "This woman matters. This sacrifice counts. This invisibility ends here." And everything had changed. I wrote in the ledger one final time. Not the funds ledger. Christopher kept that now. But my own. The personal one. The one where I tracked what mattered. 5 years since the wedding. 5 years since table 14. 247 seats given. 1 woman seen. 1 community built. 1 life changed. Which changed everything else. I closed the ledger. Left it on the shelf beside Eleanor's thank you card and the key to her house. And the first check I'd ever written for the fund. Tomorrow I'd wake up and there would be more requests. More people who needed seats. More opportunities to organize our showing up. But tonight, I sat in my small kitchen, in my small house, and felt something I'd earned through 5 years of payments and sacrifice, and showing up even when it hurt. Contentment, not happiness, not peace, not satisfaction, just contentment. The quiet knowledge that I'd done something that mattered, that I'd taken the worst day of my life and transformed it into something beautiful. Table 14 had been exactly where I needed to be, because from there I could see everything clearly, could see what mattered and what didn't, could see that love wasn't about where you sat, but who sat with you, who saw you, who showed up. And now, 5 years later, 247 people had seats because I'd been willing to sit at table 14 and let Eleanor speak the truth that needed speaking. Worth it. Yes, 1,000 times yes, the loan, the sacrifice, the humiliation, the pain, all of it. Worth it. Because from that one seat, an entire community had grown, and that community would outlive me, would keep giving seats long after I was gone, would keep showing up, keep organizing, keep mattering. Eleanor would have been proud. Robert would have been proud. And I, sitting in my small kitchen at my old table with my lukewarm tea, I was proud too. Proud of the woman who'd sat at table 14 and survived. Proud of the woman who'd stood up afterward and built something from the wreckage. Proud of the mother, the teacher, the friend, the founder, the witness. Proud of Margaret Hayes. Me finally, fully, completely proud.